This is the Greatness Router, where we connect purpose to process, one conversation at a time. And we are live. You are listening to the Greatness Router, where purpose meets process, one conversation at a time. I'm your host, Zena C, and today's guest is Dr. Frederick Engram. Dr. Engram is a friend of mine and a classmate from the great Johnson C. Smith University. Dr. Engram, or Dr. Frederick V, I want to know what this V stands for, but that's for another conversation. Dr. Frederick V. Engram Jr. is a critical race scholar who situates his work in understanding how African Americans make sense of their experiences with race, racism, and anti-Blackness within higher education and the criminal justice systems. He is the author of Black Liberation Through Action and Resistance, Move, and has published his works in other media outlets such as Blavity, Diverse Issues in Higher Education, and Forbes. Oh my gosh. Let's dive in. Did I miss anything?
I mean, listen, we'll be here all day if we really start.
I know that's right. I know that's right. I am just truly grateful for you taking the time out of your busy academic and life schedule to, join me to speak to my listeners, our listeners at this point in time, and to really help me bring forth the next generation of young people so that they can recognize the different pathways to their own greatness. I'm so grateful for you.
Yeah, I appreciate the invite. Anytime somebody from Smith, most people from Smith, reach out and ask for me to pop in, I'm always down to do that. So I'm honored too.
No, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So I like to start with an icebreaker. Granted, we've already had our keys, but let's warm the people up a little bit. Um, and I feel like this question is not foreign from you, and you're gonna come with a response like way too quickly, but I'm here for it. If you could have a candid, unfiltered conversation with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
Harriet Tubman.
I see. I told you.
I wouldn't know I like Harriet Tubman or like Nat Turner, like
Ooh.
the disruptors, the
Mm.
rebellious ones, because I just want to know what they heard from God that told them
Ooh,
that
I love it.
it was their duty to lead the people, to be disruptive, to not lean into respectability,
Hmm.
to be the change that they so badly sought.
Hmm.
And what was the pivotal moment specifically that was like, this is happening now? I know what mine was, but I would love to hear from them personally what theirs was.
Oh my gosh, that would be extremely enlightening. I love it. I see. I knew you were gonna have something already like predetermined. Like I thought about this 20 years ago, probably before that. I'm here for it. I respect it because
Mhm.
look, the movers and shakers, the disruptors are the ones who are gonna carry us forward. So I respect it.
For sure.
So let's get into the purpose behind your work. I started this podcast because you can talk all day about the what, but I really want to get into the meat and potatoes of the why. Like what brought you to where you are to that point to, I this is my soapbox. This is the pinnacle of what I'm willing to lay it all down on the ground for. Like I want to get into the nitty-gritty of what that why is. So if you had to pinpoint, and I feel like you just brought this up, if you had to pinpoint the moment you knew that this was your calling, that this conversation, this movement, I'm going to call it a movement, was your calling, where would that position be in your timeline?
I think it's so interesting because I feel like it isn't like one particular moment, but I feel like it's like a series of
Mm,
fortunate and like unfortunate events. I think
okay.
all of these things served as like seeds, right, that ultimately led me to this place. And I think all of those experiences kind of like wired or hardwired me when it was time to move, right? When it was time to like act. And I
Mm,
think lots of different experiences that took place, right? Loss of a relative to the system, and our family didn't even know about it. And we found out after, his passing and just like different things like that. But I think the thing that like jolted me, because I was headed to law school. I tell people this like probably more recently. Like I was headed to law school. I took the LSAT twice and I was applying to law schools like at that time, and I was also
Okay.
looking at American University in DC. And it
Mhm.
was like this was 2016, that election cycle. So we were fake, President Obama was ending his second term,
It
and
was a big transition.
yeah, who was it going to be? Was it going to be Clinton or was it going to be that other man? And I began to notice, right, like all the shifts beginning to like take place in DC, like very quickly, very abruptly. Obama's still in office, but these things are beginning to happen. And I remember specifically an experience where a young black undergrad woman was physically assaulted by a staff member who I believe they said was a veteran because the students were protesting. Students were protesting and they were burning flags, which is, their right to do. Whether people agree with it or not, that's their right. And
Right.
physically assaulted her. Now there were white males out there protesting, there were other white folks protesting. He
Mhm.
physically assaulted the black girl that he saw. So I remember that. On top of that, there were the African American undergraduate women were being physically threatened and terrorized by white male frat boy upperclassmen, like throwing bananas at them and
Mm.
just, doing different, very racialized things toward
Mhm.
black women. So this is my first semester. And then the second semester, Taylor Dumpson becomes the first, she becomes the first elected black woman student body president. She also happens to be an AKA. So we woke up the day after, I believe, her swearing in. And the morning that after that, there were nooses on campus with bananas, and then on a
This
banana,
is the student body president.
yeah, they were targeting her, and it wasn't even undergrads, it was like people in the community off campus, and they wrote like Harambe Bay and like AKA like on the banana that were hanging from the nooses. So I see these things happening, and all of this is taking place. And now there have been racialized experiences there prior to my arrival at that institution, but like this felt different.
Mhm.
And I remember thinking to myself, like, law school is cool, and you know, if that's where I'm supposed to end up, then cool. But I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something else. And I feel
Okay.
like I needed more so on college campuses. Like these black students
Mhm.
and non-black students need to see me, hear my perspective, hear my voice. And in that moment, I stopped applying to law school and applied to the only doctoral program that I applied to. And that is the one that I got into and the one that I completed, right? Like
Look at God.
right. It was in that of like listening to like I feel like I'm headed the wrong path. And this all of these series of events that are taking place are leading me to where I'm supposed to be going. And that
Okay.
I literally called my cousin who was a doctoral student and talked to her. And I was like, I think I need to pivot. And I that day started searching for doctoral programs that were like deeply social justice oriented,
Okay.
like in their foundations, and that's how I ended up at Northeastern.
That's amazing. I mean, it goes back to the series of fortunate yet unfortunate
Mhm.
events. Like, it's amazing how we have to be uncomfortable. Our change comes out of discomfort. Let
For
me
sure.
let me put it like that. So, I truly commend you for even recognizing that you needed to pivot
Mhm.
even though you had already like semi committed to a path. Like you're already like, you know what? I have a different cape I need to put on right now. This one isn't it.
For sure. I
I
think it's interesting being open, right? Being open to that because so many of us have those aha moments and we ignore them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think when you ignore your aha moments, it kind of leads you. Because I think I had an aha moment earlier, right? After undergrad, and I didn't listen, and then I felt like my career trajectory was stuck
Mm,
because of
mhm,
my not listening. So I
mhm.
I told myself that if I was given a second chance to correct it, that I would not let fear keep me from growing.
That's huge. That is a major key, as Khaled would put. Like that, not allowing being scared to stop you from changing direction. Like you knew, you felt in your person, in your soul that it was time to do something else. And I respect that. I can appreciate that pivot point.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about resilience
Hmm.
because every who you want to speak to, they had to be resilient. Who you are speaking to, we have to be resilient. Who you are building your brand and your person to be, it has to be a resilient individual and a resilient entity. What keeps you in the game in the midst of even today's temperature, in the midst of everything else? What keeps you in the game with things like to just help you keep going and to work as smoothly as it is? And outsider looking in, I know that mental health is big for you.
Yeah, yeah. So I think part of it is recognizing like that so many of us are still not yet awake, right? So many of us are still not aware
Hmm.
of what's taking place, what's happening, and how our actions or inactions also allow for like some of this to take place, right? I often talk about people not understanding white supremacy enough, not hating it enough, not being aware of our own positionality within that system and that
Hmm.
within that structure, and how our being apathetic or ambivalent to that structure and the role that we play in it allows for these types of things to happen. And then I think about like my nieces and nephews, right, who are now college age, right, and making decisions. I have a niece who lives in Florida, right? I worry about her consistently. I have a nephew. I was literally talking to them in group chat this morning about like what are your plans? I have a niece who's a senior, right, in undergrad, and then her
Right.
siblings are coming behind her. Both one graduated last year, he took a gap year, and then sister graduated this year. And we're talking like what are y'all plans? Like what do you plan to do, and how is college a part of that conversation to get where you need to go? And so I think about as imagine futures. I think about even beyond me, right? The next generation that
Right.
precedes us, right, or that follows us, and what kind of place I want them to be able to live in. And so I think those are parts of the things that drive me. People ask me all the time, "Are you an Afrofuturist or Afro pessimist?" And I said I reside somewhere in the middle, right?
Facts.
You know what I'm saying? Because I think a realist in a lot of ways, but I think about again the imagined futures and the way that we birth those futures through our own foresight, through our own experiences, through things that we didn't get to do what we dreamt for
Hmm.
others. And I
Hmm.
think it's our responsibility to like lay that framework and path for maybe what you were dreaming was your descendants, right?
Okay.
You were
Oh,
dreaming
okay. Okay. I like that.
and you had to be the person to like lay the brick for them to follow. And so I often think about that as my meaning, what keeps me going, what keeps
Okay.
in the fight, what keeps me remembering my why. I think that's what it is.
I respect that on so many levels. Working beyond yourself,
Mm-hmm.
not even planning on benefiting for yourself, like literally thinking generations in advance. It's kind of like your parents turn around being like, "Look, I'm not leaving you nothing, but what I'm leaving is everything for my grandchildren," type of situation. I love that concept, and I love that idea of forethought because it goes back to so many of us are still dazed,
Mm-hmm.
so many of us are still, sluggish or even hiding under the blanket for a lack of better words. Um that we don't even we so many of us don't know what's going on. And unfortunately, a lot of us are gonna get left behind. Like we can't my dad one thing my dad always taught me was that you cannot save everyone. And that has always been difficult for to settle in my soul. Cause look, I'm always Captain Save 'em. Like let's
Yeah, yeah.
go. But now in
Hmm.
my in this wisdom era, I understand.
You got to learn that everybody can't go, right? Harriet knew that. Harriet knew that, right? Everybody go. And we, as much as we want to save everybody and take everybody, the reality of it is everybody cannot go because if we took everybody, we gonna sink the ship, right? So
Mhm,
some people got to stay back, and part of that staying back is their own doing, right? It's your inability to accept the fact that women also have say so in this. It's your inability to accept the fact that
mhm,
queer people also belong here. It's your inability to accept the fact that children don't need to get beat into submission. It's your
mhm.
inability to accept that, right? And those people who don't accept those things should absolutely get
But like you holding back progress. You gotta go.
left.
No, that's real. Not recognizing that there are two sides to a spectrum is ridiculous to me
Mhm,
as a person. Like, how do you not recognize that yes, things can be hot, but at the same time,
mhm,
it can be cold too. Like, how do you not recognize the importance of both ends as well as that middle ground? That's what's never processed with me well. However, it has done me justice when confronting,
mhm.
because painting that picture, people really do stand on one side of a scale or the other, not realizing that the scale is really what's balancing
Correct.
everything out, you know?
For sure. For sure.
So, okay, well, now I want to know what your lesson for others would be, because I
Mhm,
mean that was a big one, but I feel like
mhm.
I pulled that out. So, what is your lesson for others? What's one mindset shift or practice that has helped you succeed and grow?
I have a lesson for living. It's on the paddle over there. And it says be intentional
It's on the what?
on a paddle.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
And it says be intentional, right? And it means that like be intentional, like everything you do. Nothing I do is on accident.
Yes.
Everything I do is purpose. It's for something. And I think we got to be intentional about continuing to learn, be intentional about continuing to grow, be intentional about knowing that, like, yo, I don't know this. And I know the answer to this. And I should be quiet and listen or reach out to somebody who might know more than me. Be
Mhm.
intentional about knowing that you are not the all knowing, right? Even though I know a lot of things, I don't know everything.
I do
I'm
not
good.
know
I'm
everything.
great at I'm great at a lot of things. I'm terrible at others. And I recognize when I don't know something to call on the people who do,
Mhm.
and even that intentionality is a part of your maturity, right?
Yes.
And being a person who is aware, who is self-aware, who is someone who internally like thinks about things and has conversations with yourself about ways that you can still develop and you can still grow. So for me, that requires a level of intentionality and purpose to be able to recognize that about yourself. When I have moments where I'm like, let me ask someone else what they think about this before, because my perspective could be imbalanced, right? My perspective
Mhm.
could be out of sync here. I know there are things that I don't need your permission for, like rebellion, and I don't need your permission to tell me that there are two sides when we're talking about oppression. I don't need that balance, but me specifically, it's like, hey, maybe I came at that person who I care about a little bit too harshly, and
Okay.
that's me to talk to somebody and ask them if there was a softer approach I could have took, or if I need to apologize. That too, right? That level of intentionality is what I like my life motto.
I love it. I got excited because, and then I had to realize, like, hold up, I'm not listening. Like, I got to tune back into the conversation. Active listening is a true skill set. But what type of person doesn't recognize that intention is necessary?
Mm. People who have told themselves that they are no longer capable of learning.
Ooh.
There are people who have decided that they know everything they need to know about everything, and that there is no room and nothing that anyone else can teach them. Look at our parents in a lot of ways that they teach us these things and they
Good
lean
angle.
heavily into these perspectives, right? Like when I'm talking to my mom about or my dad even right about certain perspectives, I'm like, we don't say that or we don't do that or that's not appropriate. Or
Hmm.
even when I'm reteaching folks about our relationships with blackness and
Hmm.
how we don't say certain things and how you can also be a tool of white supremacy even as a member of an oppressed class, right?
Mm,
And I often think people wrestle with that. I talk about this in the book, I talk about it in life, right? Like people don't have a problem with oppression, people just don't want to be the oppressed. And so long as I'm not the person being held back, I'm cool with it happening to the immigrants. I'm cool with it happening
mm,
to the queer people. I'm cool with it happening to the poor people. I'm cool with it happening over there because it does not directly impact me. And
mm.
so trying to get people to think more about the ways that we need to unlearn our relationships with oppression and our relationships with the systemic system of inequality are why we still have a place to go, even in your elder age, even in all of your wisdom and all knowing, you still don't know everything.
Facts. I love how you put that. Look, the gems, people, the gems. I hope you have your pen and paper out because Dr. Ingram did not come to play today. Okay. All right. So how has your how has your process or your thinking evolved? Because the Fred I met at Smith is very much still the individual in front of me today, but you've blossomed and grown so much. So tell me tell me about how that process has been.
Mhm. I think part of it is, which is a really good point, is like I had to fail a lot to be able to finally figure out what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. Right. I think early in my career, like a lot of us, I think navigating life, post undergrad is not really the easiest thing, right? And
Mhm.
figuring out what you're supposed to be doing and what's next because you've spent your entire life being told, go to college. Okay, I did that now. And now what's next? And we don't, and I think even some of our institutions don't really do a good job of like talking about what's next.
Yeah,
Like, I think there are certain people who get that very special attention, like those of us who were scholars, who were smart, those of us who were involved in those ways. We
right.
get that hands-on, very special attention. Like I'll write you a letter for graduate school, or I'll connect you with my friend or my connection at a particular job. But I don't feel like everybody gets that. And so I think for some time it was just trying to navigate like what am I supposed to be doing next? What's next? What's next? And I think I had to go through different things in my own journey for me to be able to like recognize like, yo, I need to be doing things. And then also not staying in the same place, not being stagnant, moving, right? When I left Charlotte to move to DC, as you know, right? Shout out to HU, right?
Yes.
That experience, right, where you get to be around really forward thinking, progressive black folks who were young,
Yeah.
seeing 25-year-old doctors and 24-year-old lawyers and seeing that like as a regular thing. And you're sitting here thinking
And the
like,
norm.
yeah, in the norm. And you sit here thinking like, yo, I'm 27. I'm tripping. You know what I mean? Like
Right. I'm behind the eight ball right now.
business. And I think being there definitively shifted how I thought about I knew what I wanted to do, but it really removed all the excuses that I could have for myself to stop me from moving forward, right?
Okay.
And then I think reading, right? Like reading, really leaning into learning a lot of stuff, right? Black feminist work, right? And leaning into those thinkers and those thought leaders and those disruptors, right?
Right.
Resistors and understanding what they were trying to show us, what they were trying to teach us, and
Mhm.
that was either not made available to us or we avoided it and ran away from it.
Mhm.
And being in that space, right? And once I got more serious about like what my career was, what I should be doing, I watched my star kind of begin to rise, right?
I like it.
And then I think that knowingness, right, is what really allowed me to like fully blossom in the
Okay.
ways that I think people see now. Like you said, he was always there. I was always focused in those ways.
Always.
I needed I needed shifts in my life to help me figure out how to be the best version of myself.
Those chips became like finger holds. Have you
Yes.
ever gone like bouldering or
Hmm.
rock climbing?
Hmm.
Those chips became like what you could like grasp onto. I'm there with you. I
Yeah.
get it. It's
Hmm.
all a journey, and I feel like we don't allot ourselves the not even just opportunity, but the grace
Hmm.
to travel the way we all are supposed to travel. Everybody has their own pathway,
Hmm.
but instead we often find ourselves following a path that someone else told us to do. Like,
Life
you
is
know?
a journey. Like my family, like my granddad and them, like I was going to law school. Like that was my family expecting me to do. So it was like law school, law school, law school. And then what I realized is like I need to take my knowledge of the law and the things that I learned and apply that to how I save my people in higher ed and the
I
criminal
love
justice
it.
system. And I don't need to be a lawyer or in a courtroom to do that. I can liberate us right in other ways. And so I think that was what I was supposed to take from that aspect of the journey, but also in doing what I wanted to do with that. And I think
Mhm.
that is why I've had a success because I'm not living someone else's dream for me.
Correct.
I'm living my dream for myself.
Correct. I love that. But even though y'all, let me just be very clear. Dr. Ingram has always been a very I'm going to run and dance and jump to the
Hmm.
beat of my own drum. He can hear the rest of y'all, don't get me wrong, but he
Right.
has always very much been this. So it's amazing to watch you grow. Like even when you'd be on TMZ and I'm tuning in like, oh, yo, I got a homie who's like, they're calling on as the professional here. Like this is dope. It was just, it's exciting to see you thriving in your element. So I definitely need you to keep shining and keep pushing because you're doing the work
I,
and
that,
it's visible.
yeah.
What's next for you? What do you have going on?
Book two. We are in the phase. Well, I've already launched my study, collected the data. I've already written some pieces from that work that will come out in a few journal articles, a few book chapters. I have
Okay.
a textbook that an actual textbook that I'm a
This one will be the textbook.
co-author of, co-contributing author of, that will come out like this early spring, summer.
Okay.
So that, and then book two, and first book was about liberation, book two was about rebellion. And so figuring out where I want to put that from the lessons that I learned from the first book, writing experience, and then also thinking about representatives and representation. And I have a very crazy story that we could talk about offline about my first experience with allowing people into my business space who met me offline and wanted to,
Mhm.
excuse me, work with me, and how that chaotic process took off. And so being really intentional again, right, about
Okay.
who I let into my personal space. So also considering, literary agents and just agents in general. So that's where we are right now. Potential fellowships and lining those things up. Really trying to push book two even further than book one went. Yeah.
I am excited.
Yeah.
I am excited. I want to we're not really backtracking. I'm excited that you're working on book 2 and book 3. I am. Because I remember sitting in in one of my English honors classes and they had us reading like everything. They had us reading Malcolm and Martin. They had us reading all of these speech analyzation books and all of that. But then when I got to Howard,
Mhm.
Howard is the pro black of the pro black. And I was in an era when I got to an era. Let me address it was era like a time period, but error ERROR, like it was both, where I was under the impression that we had traveled much further than we had actually traveled as a people and as a nation.
Yeah.
Because if you remember when I left Smith, I went down to NASCAR,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I loved it. It was one of the best
Mhm.
experiences of my development, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
But by the time I got to Howard and I'm meeting all these pro black, and I went to Smith, like, so it's not foreign, but I'm meeting all of these different perspectives. I actually got upset at one point because I was just like, why is all we're talking about is race behind the color line? And like all we were covering, Michael Eric Dyson, who I know that you have had your riffs with. But we were covering all of these different levels of text. And it was so confusing to me because I was still at a different position in in my development, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think it's the journey, right? Because but it's like people who've been black their whole lives. They're like, I've been black my whole life. Why are you telling me this particular thing? Like,
Mhm.
but like, yeah, your lived experience, but like your lived experience cannot be spoken for everybody else's. And doing the reading and doing the learning and journeying through
Mhm.
this allows you to make space
Mhm.
for other people's non-myopic, not monolithic experiences. And I think when you enter that space of all these great thinkers and people who push conversations to be more critical, right? I think
Mhm.
that is, for some people, the first slap in their face of the reality of like, this country, this social experiment of a nation is not what I thought it was
Yes.
as a social experiment rather than like this very fixed thing.
Mhm.
And being in those spaces with those kinds of thinkers, people who push you further, is an opportunity to really, for the first time in your life, really critically assess
Yeah.
everything we thought we knew, the norms, what wasn't normal, the acceptable, what wasn't acceptable, and really wrestle with those things. And if you're not ready, it will completely throw you off, right? When you have not been prepared for that in the ways that maybe you should have been or you thought you were. Yeah.
That Big facts.
Hmm.
Big facts. That being said, let's talk about your book. Um, so y'all, I'm gonna be completely transparent. I have not read my homie's book. I am going to be purchasing my book. I mean, my book, and I highly suggest that you purchase it as well because of what Dr. Ingram is about to explain. He had to paint me a whole new picture as to the purpose and prime of this text, or his, as he called it, love letter.
Hmm.
So I'm going to turn it over to you. I really want you to enlighten us on the mission behind. And
Yeah.
I need you to say the title because I need to hear the move and make sure that the move that's in my head is the proper move of the title.
So it's Black liberation through action and resistance move, and it's so we got in order to talk about that we got to go back. So 2020, right around the time of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and all these other very 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 terrible occurrences that happened to
Back to back at that.
Black folks back to back. Right, there, there was what was alleged to be a racial reckoning, right, of white people beginning to realize the rawness of white supremacy because we were all in the house because of the COVID pandemic, and we were all forced to be on television. We were on news, right, regularly figuring out what was happening next. And then a lot of white people began reading. They began reading certain books, a book that I shall not name, but it was very popular during that time. And so they began thinking to themselves, like, oh, I've read this book now. I participated in book discussions. I participated in listening to this author describe the book. And now I know I'm no longer racist. I'm no longer racist. I'm now
Because you're
anti-racist
cured.
because I'm curious, right? They were getting certificates, right, and weekend programs, and they were really heralding themselves as anti-racist. And I'm like, okay, right? That's not exactly how it happens. Anti-racism, particularly for non-black folks, is a journey. So what I tell people all the time is like, you don't call yourself anti-racist. It's just like in the deaf community, you don't give yourself the name. Those who are deaf give you your name, right?
Mm,
So it's the very same thing with anti-racism. Those who are members of oppressed groups will say to you, when your journey is completed, here lies an anti-racist. You don't get to put that name upon yourself, particularly
mm,
as a member of the privileged class, the
mhm.
privileged group based on racialized hierarchy. And so I'm watching this take place and I'm saying, like, these people are not really being honest. They're not being honest about where the blame belongs, where the confusion belongs, where all of these things, why it was made possible for Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd to be murdered. Why these things were even made possible. And we are allowing the people who benefit from these possibilities to now feel free because of the fact that we all can be. And I'm like, nah, absolutely not. And so what I wanted to do was be a truth space in terms of how we understand racism and anti-blackness and white supremacy, and more specifically, our generation, right? And those who shepherded us and those who we shepherd, and then those who are not black, but see themselves on this journey toward what could be liberation, right?
Okay.
What could be the future of liberation. And if they are also invested, they also got to tell themselves some very harmful truths. And so my goal with this book was to provide that space for that conversation to take place with yourself, with your community, with your people. And I think I go through, I mean, everything from the movements, right? Feminist, womanist, civil rights, right? What is it? The racial instances, our relationship with white religiosity and how that began to show up in the black church,
Okay. Okay.
the politics of respectability, right? And everything that you can think of that we grapple with as a people that keeps us from getting out in these streets, right?
Okay. Okay.
Having that real conversation. And I wanted it to be something that was, because, to your point, a lot of this scholarship and a lot of these works are so heavy. They're so beyond that lay people can understand. And what I
Right.
taught by my mentors is like, you write for the people that you know. Like academia and academics, you're not as good as you think you are until you can write it plain.
Yes.
A lot of people don't have the ability to do that. So I use a lot of different things, right? I use popular culture to talk about scholarship and our experiences. And even with this book, right? Like move is a double entendre. So it's like move as in like social justice movements, but also move to music, as each chapter is named after a song of liberation. And
I
you
love
can
it.
actually create a soundtrack. And I actually encourage folks, I actually made one, I believe, on iTunes, Apple Music, right? Where
Okay.
you can actually listen to each of the chapters as you read the book, right?
Okay. I like it.
You can like listen to the songs in order while you're doing that and get inspired in other ways, because it's also we got to lean into our artistic side, right?
Okay.
And so I think that helps make it more palatable for people, not respectable because it's not that, but palatable. Like you can be able to see yourself in this and be able to relate to it.
I love it. I'm really excited.
Yeah,
I'm so very proud of you.
thank you.
This is a big like taking.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like massive.
Hmm.
And is it scary?
So I think there are moments for sure. I think my parents are more afraid, particularly in this time, than I am. But I feel like, again, when you're called to do something, fear cannot be the thing that
Mhm.
rests at the forefront, right? Like, I'm supposed to be doing something for
Mhm.
my people, and I can't allow fear to be the center. We,
Yeah.
for so long, allowed whiteness to be the center of how we did everything and how we didn't do everything. And
Yeah.
if we replace that with fear, it's still the same oppressor. And so, no, I don't operate in fear. I operate in knowing. I operate in necessity. I operate in resistance. And so I feel like this is an act of that. And so I don't have time to focus on being scared. I got to focus on joy. I got to focus on future building. I got to focus on liberating. And while I'm so busy doing that, I don't have time to be scared.
Big facts. Look, I agree. I agree. If you aren't scared of the concept, it's not big enough.
For sure.
That's my
Hmm.
I can't even think of the word I'm looking for, but that's how I feel about the entire situation. That's how I feel about your greatness. Like, your greatness is just that, yours, and everybody's is going to be defined differently, and everybody's journey is going to be different. But finding the silver lining and finding the purpose
Hmm.
in those pitfalls, those cliff hangs, those tumbles, those scrapes, those breaks is really imperative just moving forward. So I am so grateful for you today. Is there anything that I did not cover that we should have covered that you need the ears of the people to hear?
No, I don't. I think that this was a helpful conversation. I think it'll drive people toward wanting to know more and wanting to do some of that self assessing and deeper diving. I think you can't do all the teaching for everybody. What
Mhm.
you can do is get them started.
Yes. Yes. I love that. On that note, how can the people find you?
So I have left Twitter. So Instagram, Dr. Ingram 19. I'm also on Threads under that same name. Hit me on LinkedIn. And that's it. And if it's a professional thing, my info is all over Google, so you can definitely find my email address there and reach out to me there. I'm always open for productive, progressive conversations.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for your time. I'm truly grateful for you. And to our fellow listeners, I hope that you learned something today. I hope that you have chosen to own your greatness and to recognize that it's not a straight path and it will be a journey. We are truly grateful for your attention, for that is the greatest gift that you can give someone, next to love. I will give you that. But peace, love, light. It's me, Zena C. And this has been another episode of The Greatness Router. And that's a wrap on this episode of The Greatness Router. If you found some value in today's conversation, be sure to subscribe, rate, and definitely share. It helps more people connect to the journey of greatness. Until next time, keep moving with purpose.